I tested the digital nomad life in the Philippines, and I loved it. But going all in meant something way harder. I had to untangle over a decade of life in San Francisco. Residency, taxes, healthcare, banking, and even my mailing address. Before I could leave the US, I had to dismantle my entire life. And in this video, I'm gonna share how I did it. Moving your life abroad isn't about buying a one-way ticket. It's dozens of decisions, hundreds of messages, and letting go of the familiar, so you can make space for something new. This was the moment it got real. I would like to give my notice that I am leaving my apartment. My last day will be May 31st. I made this apartment my home for years, but once I put it in writing, everything else had to follow. If I was going to live abroad, I couldn't just leave. I had to legally unhook myself from the life that I built. First, I had to figure out where I belonged in the US, at least on paper. Here's what most people don't realize. If you want to stop paying state income tax, you can't just pack a bag and bounce. You legally have to break up with your state and establish residency somewhere else. So, I researched every state with 0% income tax and what it actually takes to become a resident in each one. Most of them, you need to register a car. And after a decade of city life, I didn't even have one. Of the ones that were left, one didn't allow mail forwarding, which was a deal breaker if I wasn't going to have a permanent address. That left me with one. South Dakota.
Never thought I'd end up in South Dakota, but here I am.
But wait, how did I actually become a resident of South Dakota? There were a few steps I had to take, starting with,
Where the hell will I get mail?
even if you're not changing your residency, figuring out how to handle your mail is essential if you're going nomad. I wasn't going to have a permanent address anymore, but I still needed a US address for taxes, banking, and all the official stuff that doesn't follow you around the world. I signed up for a mail forwarding service based in South Dakota. It gave me a legal address for government stuff like my taxes, and even those holiday postcards from friends with 2 kids and matching pajamas. But here's the catch. Most banks don't accept mail forwarding addresses, and some will even freeze your account if they spot one, so I split it. South Dakota handled my official stuff, and for anything else that needed a real address like my bank, I trusted one of my family members. My first step was complete. Now it was time to head to my new home state to continue the process. I'm currently in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I'm working on my next step of becoming a digital nomad. Part of that step is leaving my residency in California and establishing residency in another state that has 0% income tax because I'm not going to be in the country for the next year. It doesn't make sense for me to owe taxes to California. Now that I was in South Dakota, I had to spend at least one night there. I decided to stay 2, just in case. And I made sure to get a receipt to prove it. Step 4 was signing a South Dakota residency affidavit, a document for full-time travelers like RVers, nomads, or anyone else whose home is more of a concept than a place. And the final step, getting my new license to seal the deal.
Real talk. I've got about 7 months before my appointment. I'm excited to try to switch my residency over because it means it's really the start of my digital nomad journey. And then there's also part of me that's really sad. There's something about letting go that's sad but also exciting.
But I did it. I left California and I walked out with a new address, a new ID, and officially a new life. Next thing to figure out was my finances. I'm not talking about budgeting. I'm still working, so income wasn't the issue. But I needed to make sure that I could pay for things abroad without getting hit by some insane fees. A lot of US cards charge foreign transaction fees because apparently paying once for your coffee isn't enough. I have an Amex Platinum, which works great for perks, but some places abroad don't accept it. So I pair it with a Chase Sapphire Preferred, a Visa card, just to make sure that I was covered if something didn't go through. Next, debit cards. Not every business is credit card friendly, and in some countries, cash is still the norm. But ATM fees abroad? Brutal. Like $6.95 in fees just to pull out a 20 bill? What is this VIP surcharge to access my own money? That's why I opened a Charles Schwab checking account. They don't just skip foreign transaction fees, they reimburse every ATM fee anywhere in the world. But even that might not cut it. In places like Argentina, cash is king, and ATM rates don't always work in your favor. So I set up a Western Union account too, so I could send money to myself and pick it up in a local currency, usually at a much better exchange rate. And lastly, there's person-to-person payments. Venmo works in the US, but outside the country, it's useless. I signed up for Wise. It lets me transfer money internationally with minimal fees and great exchange rates. It's perfect for things like paying rent or small businesses. Once I had my cards, cash access, and a way to pay people abroad, I felt financially ready to let go. And then there was healthcare. I wasn't going to have access to the US medical system anymore, so I needed to check off everything that I could before I left. I booked a final dentist visit, handled my annual checkups, and made sure I had refills of everything that I might need.
Never thought I would need this much birth control. These are antibiotics just in case maybe I get traveler's diarrhea or some other type of sickness.
Honestly, holding a year's worth of meds felt a little extreme, but it's a quiet kind of security. Then came the shots. Vaccines were one of those things I didn't want to figure out after I got sick. So before I left, I looked into what I might need.
On my way to get some vaccines. So here's the thing about me. Well, I do like being settled in one location at a time to just have my normal habits and routines. I'm also not a stranger to just venture off and be in some remote land in the middle of the jungle or on top of the mountain. So to prepare for my travels, I'm going to try to get the vaccines that I might need hypothetically for the countries that I might visit, just so I have some extra protection. And it sounds like today I'm going to have 4 vaccines.
What's your dominant arm, right or left?
Right arm.
So there's like a little bit slower ones. Do you want them on the left side?
Preferably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible I'll never need them, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. The last step in taking care of my health was insurance. Not just regular travel insurance. I mean real health insurance, the one that covers me while I'm living abroad. I canceled my Kaiser plan because it only covered me in California, and I switched to Cigna Global, which covers me in most countries across the world, excluding the US unless you want to pay more. But that's fine. I wasn't sticking around. I went with a plan that covers inpatient care only, meaning hospital stays and emergencies. It doesn't cover your routine dentist and doctor visits. After comparing costs in countries that I might visit, I realized that basic healthcare was way more affordable than in San Francisco. With health sorted out, now I just need to make sure that I won't vanish off the grid the second that I leave the country. The last logistical thread? My phone. I need to keep my US number, not for convenience, but because, well, apparently every bank app I use insists on texting me at 3 a.m. to prove that I'm me. 2FA texts, baking apps, and even just staying connected with friends, it all depends on having a number that works no matter where I go. I looked into my Verizon plan and other providers and realized they're all basically designed for someone who takes a vacation once a year, not someone who lives abroad. So I switched to the Google Fi Flexible plan. It keeps my number, covers my texts and calls in 200 plus countries, and only costs about $20 a month plus usage. But the catch, they shut your data off after 3 months abroad. So I pair it with local eSIMs from Airlo. They're way cheaper than the data that I'd pay for anyways. So I get the best of both worlds. Google Fi for staying reachable and legit, and Airlo for keeping my data costs low. So that was the logistics. The paperwork, the planning, the practical stuff, the untangling. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. And now I'm finally set up to go. But there's a whole other side of leaving. The part that's harder to check off the list. The goodbyes, the grief, and the letting go of a life that I spent over a decade building. That part's next. Thanks for coming along this part of the journey. The logistics are done. The feelings, not so much. If you're curious about any of the services I mentioned, the cards, phone plans, etc., I added links in the description.